Hi Cancer, welcome to your April 2025 horoscope. In April, I would say there are two major events to keep track of. The first is Venus going direct, and the second is a rather intense opposition between Mars and Pluto, while they also square the Sun. So definitely two major things that will have an impact on you in April. Let's get into the more concrete dates and the more concrete themes that will come up for you in the month ahead. Between April 4th and the 7th, we have Venus conjunct Saturn in your 9th house. This did happen earlier in the year, but because Venus has been moving retrograde, it has went all the way back and now it's conjuncting Saturn again. While they conjunct, they will also trine Mars in your 1st house and sextile Uranus in your 11th house. Venus conjuncting Saturn means that you are facing a very real roadblock, a very real challenge, especially when it comes to your beliefs and your values. It could also be that there's a roadblock in your way when it comes to your education or your travel. One way that you could be supported and be allowed to work through this, one thing that could help you work through this, is that Mars and that Uranus. So, with Mars in your 1st house, definitely rest on your assertiveness, rest on your ability to set boundaries, to stand up for yourself. That will definitely help you during this time. You might find that if you shrink down, if you don't stand up for yourself, if you allow others to step all over you, if you don't speak up for what is important to you, that it doesn't really help you move past this roadblock and allow you to get to where you want to go. And because we have that support from Uranus in your 11th house, definitely take a look if there's a way that your friends and your community could help you out with this roadblock. You know, perhaps you realize that you you failed to grab a visa for your upcoming travels. And, you know, that's a very real roadblock from Saturn. And you might find that you need to stand up for yourself. You need to make some phone calls. You need to, step into this assertive position. And you might find yourself reaching out to a specific friend that can help you with getting this visa in a much quicker manner. Again, this is just one way that could manifest, just to get your brain cells thinking and helping you in the direction. Later in the month, on April 13th, we have Venus going direct. I love the fact that Venus going direct also happens during a full moon. And it's a full moon in Libra, which is also the sign ruled by Venus. So this couldn't have been more beautifully set up by the universe. With Venus going direct, it's time to start putting into action, start making some decision, making phone calls, ticking off check boxes, especially on the things you've been reflecting on since March 1st. These could have been topics to do with your beliefs and with your lifestyle, topics to do with what sort of education you want to pursue, what travel you want to do. And it could be topics to have to do with your career or with the public role that you have. So definitely from the 13th onwards, time to take some actions and actually put the things you've been thinking about in motion. And because Venus is going direct during a full moon in Libra, which is in your 4th house, you might especially have to dig deep into some more psychological understanding of yourself, dig deep into your emotions in order to do that. And this is a full moon. We're talking about letting things go. There might also be certain ancestral patterns or certain habits, beliefs that you've been taught by your family that you need to let go of, when you start putting these things into motion. And I will add 2 more dates to be on the lookout for with this Venus going direct story. Those are April 24th and April 25th. On those 2 days, Venus conjuncts the North Node and Saturn. So on these 2 days, it might also be again that something is happening that urges you again to take action, that urges you to actually start putting into motion the things you've been reflecting on. And again, these could be things to do with your beliefs, things to do with education, travel, as well as your career or your public role. A couple of days later, on April 18th and 19th, we have the Sun and Mars entering new signs and new houses. The Sun enters Taurus, or your 11th house, and Mars enters Leo, or your 2nd house. With Mars entering Leo, you might feel yourself hopefully a little bit less angry, a little bit less combative and aggressive. With Mars in your 1st house, especially it went retrograde there, so you've probably definitely been feeling some type of way with your anger. Now that it's moved on to your 2nd house, it should continue to feel more calm and more like you can express your assertiveness in a healthy, balanced way. You might find yourself a lot more confident because the 2nd house is the house where we feel confident and we establish our belief in ourselves. At the same time, the Sun is entering Taurus, or your 11th house, so you might find yourself a lot more energized by spending time with friends, a lot more energized thinking about the future and putting some plans into motion. Be very much on the lookout of what's happening between April 18th and April 27th. In that 10-day period, we basically have indeed the Sun and Mars entering new signs. But remember, Pluto is at those beginning degrees of Aquarius. So that means that Mars is going to oppose Pluto, and together they're going to square the Sun. This can be intense. It's 3 planets that are quite prominent. Pluto's the god of the underworld, Mars is the god of war, the Sun is our ego. So there can definitely be a lot of explosiveness coming from this T-square. And because Pluto is in your 8th house, you might be facing some fears, some psychological troubles when it comes to what you believe about death. Do you have fear about getting close and intimate with somebody because you are afraid that one day they will be gone? Do you perhaps fear loss of control when you do end up being close with somebody that makes you, of course, more susceptible to being hurt? Is there a way that you're closing yourself up to that because you are afraid of being hurt? What effect does that have on your self-confidence? What effect does that have on being able to show up in the world with a feeling of, I can do this. I'm strong, I'm capable, I'm smart, I can take care of myself. There's definitely going to be some psychological stirrings in the soup, if we can call it that, stirrings in the psychological soup. And especially because this Mars and Pluto opposition is going to square the Sun in your 11th house, this might stir up as well some deep feelings or some deep consequences on your future. We are talking about the 8th house. So if I had to give an example, perhaps you start to face the fear of getting close to somebody you love. You allow yourself to relinquish control. You allow yourself to become vulnerable with them, even though that means that you're more susceptible to being hurt. And as a result, you find that your future goals start to shift. All of a sudden, you're planning a future together with this person. You're planning to, have children, buy a house together. All of a sudden, your trip to, you moving to a different country to live there, all of a sudden doesn't seem like something you want to do because you are in a relationship. You are vulnerable and intimate with this person and you don't want to leave them behind. So again, that can just be one example that comes up. But overall, you are definitely learning to get past your fear of intimacy and vulnerability, and that will have an effect on your future. And while I did mention between the 18th and the 27th is when all of this will be happening, I do want you to pay special attention to April 27th. This is when that Pluto and Mars opposition will be exact. And this is also when we have a new moon in Taurus. It's a new moon in your 11th house. So you might find on this day that you are especially starting a new type of future, a new vision for your future. Maybe you are connecting with a new community or a new group that can help you make that future a reality. But in order to do that, you do have to face that fear of being vulnerable and fear of being hurt, fear of losing somebody. And finally, we close the month on April 30th with Venus entering Aries, or your 10th house. This is the house and the place where Venus was in when it first went retrograde back in March. It's also an angular house for you, and having Venus there should feel really good. It should feel like things in your career are perhaps going a little bit better than before. And if there were considerations, reflections you had about your career, maybe certain changes you wanted to make, Venus is going direct now, so this will be a really good time to do so. So, Cancer, that is your April 2025 horoscope. I hope that you enjoy it. I hope that you seize the opportunity to start a new future, a new vision for your life ahead. I hope that you take on the challenge of that Pluto in the 8th house with both hands and you're not afraid to go along for the ride. And I thank you for joining me for this video, and I hope to see you again soon.